And welcome back, gamers. I'm Draxxinusam, and this is the Lazy Noob Pack in Dwarf Fortress. Last episode we did a tutorial on the Dwarf Therapist, and as you can see, we're just a couple frames ahead here. So what we're going to do this episode is we're basically just going to go through, rehash a few of the commands just to make sure that you're remembering them and that sort of thing. And we're also going to probably work on a little bit of military, and we'll just play stuff as it goes, just because I can't quite remember where we were before. So as you can see, we just got some migrants. They're all highlighted by these flashing X's, animals and dwarves alike. So we have a competent hammer dwarf, a competent spear dwarf, and some pets and junk. So what we're going to do is we are going to create our very first militia, or militia group. So what we're going to have to do is hit N. Whoopsies. Okay, now we hit N. I actually like him. I think I want... Well, what do you do? Minor. We're going to have this guy be the leader. So, we're going to hit N for the... Noble tab, and as you can see, there's a militia commander here. So we're going to go ahead and hit R to replace. There's no one there, so you know, it doesn't really have anything. And unfortunately, in the Dwarf Therapist, which you can see the corner of right there, it doesn't really sort by the most recently added dwarf. Here it's kind of the opposite. When they first arrive, they basically filter into the bottom. So these four are the four who just arrived. So this is the sword dwarf, just because I happen to know that he's a farmer, and the hammer dwarf and the spear dwarf were these two guys as well. So we're going to go ahead and hit enter to select him, because he was our sword dwarf, so that's what we want. And he has now been assigned as the militia commander. So since we... you can also hit enter to fill a vacancy or view them. That's also a thing. That's an FYI, in case you were like, Drax, you messed that up. You should have hit enter instead of R. You can do both. Calm down. Okay, so I'm going to hit escape, and we are back in the main menu. So we're not quite done with that militia commander yet. So now we're going to have to hit M to go to the military screen. And as you can see, it just says militia commander. Every time you want to make a new squad, you have to assign a commander the way I just showed you. They won't appear over in the military squad, which again was the M button. But it'll bring up this here, and it'll say create squad, and it'll give you a bunch of options down here as well. So we're going to have to hit C to create squad, and one day I hope to be rich and powerful, so I'm going to go ahead and say I want you to equip metal armor, just because I don't want to have to go through all of these guys and basically reassign all of the armors and weapons and blah blah blah. I'll have to do a little bit of that anyway, but I want to keep things as simple as possible for me. In the future, you may, if you think, oh god, metal armor, what am I, Daddy Warbucks? You can definitely assign them no armor or leather armor, but just be aware that if you, obviously those give less protection, which is more liable to kill valuable military dwarves. So, you know, it's a thing to consider. Okay, so there's a couple things you can do here. So as you can see, we've created a squad called the Earthen Moths. It's these are basically random. Every dwarf comes with its own like innate squad, but they only ever exist if you actually create it. This happened to be the militia commanders, and that will be the name of his squad until we change it, and we're definitely going to change it. So if we use the arrow keys and go over to the center, it'll every squad has 10 slots available for dwarves. No more, and you can always you can have as little as 1, even 0 dwarves technically if your squad is wiped out, which sucks, but I don't think I've ever had that happen. And then if you hit over again, it'll basically tell you it'll give you all of the names of available dwarves. Like, it's not going to include like Dwarven children or something, even though you might want child soldiers, you don't actually get them. But, so with commanders, when you're selecting them, it technically tells you the skills they have available. Usually, most dwarves don't come with these. But any of the military dwarves, any combat skills are listed up here, where it'll say no relevant skills. So if you happen to need to fill out your ranks and you know you've had a couple of migrant units that came through with weapon skills, but you were basically full up, like you didn't want to have a squad for every single dwarf in the world, then you can go through and this will list all of them, and it will label if they're in a group or not already. So let's say we want this hammer dwarf, and we're like, okay, oh, my squad got wiped out. All of these 8 guys died. And I know I've got dwarves around, so if you scroll through and you happen to have a... well, I guess it won't show it here. If you have... Well, I'll cover it when we have more groups. So we'll just add those guys. And then we'll come back here. So there's a couple of options as well. You can disband the squad. Honestly, I don't know why you would ever do that unless you feel like sorry that they're just a bunch of old dwarves and they're just hanging around waiting to die. That's up to you. I basically work my military dwarves to death. If they have an arm chopped off, well, that sucks, but you're going back into battle because you're a legendary spear dwarf or something. So, you can also... I've never used this. I've tried, and I'm not quite sure how it works, but if you can figure it out, feel free. Create squad appointed by this leader. So I guess, like, the leader picks someone who would be good for the job. I don't know. I don't really know how it works. And then these are basically the positions, which is the screen we're in now. Alerts, that's not something you'll need to worry about too much. You'll get those in a separate way. Equip is something if you happen to have created an armor type and you want to switch it manually, or if you want to switch what weapons they're using, or what they carry in their kits, which will be like a backpack and a, what do you call them? A water skin, that sort of thing. You can change that. Uniform will change it for the entire squad, and supplies and ammunition basically shows you the sort of things they're carrying. Schedule is something that's very important, much less so than most of these, which will basically, like, if you want military dwarves to... If you have so many dwarves where you can cycle squads, and you can have so many of the squads patrolling in areas or standing guard at the door, that sort of thing. Basically, places where you have trouble. That's definitely something you can set up here in schedule. It's a little bit more advanced, but there'll be a video about all of that later. So, all we really want to do right now is rename this, just because if we have multiple squads, I won't, like, if we have the earthen moths and the hammer strikes and the lazy-eyed turtle and stuff, like, at some point, you're either going to memorize them or you're going to forget all of them, and we're not going to want to be in that situation. So we're just going to rename them to something that obviously makes it a melee sort of group, because there can be melee and archery, and you sort of want to keep them apart so you don't send archers in to, like, fight a bunch of goblin spearmen. So we're going to call these the Fortress Templars or something. Something that basically sounds like, oh, that's kind of melee-ish. So we're going to hit escape. These guys will now all be assigned to those jobs, and we'll hit space and let the world kind of jump forward a little bit. Bunch more animals, and they're done. So we're going to go ahead and add those animals again from last video. I to view the pasture, Shift N to include creatures, anything that is going to graze. So like a cow, calf, and a baby llama, we'll include those as well. So down here is our meeting hall, or what will be our meeting hall, and our dormitory. This isn't going to be how it's set up. I'm going to change it a little bit, but we're definitely going to work on that. So we're going to dump. So again, the 3 commands to view. K is for general view. So as you can see, it's telling me I'm looking at a quartzite, which is where my cursor is. Now I'm looking at a quartzite cavern floor, rough-hewn wall, that sort of thing. So it's basically if you just want to view whatever and figure out what it is you're looking at. V is a character viewer. So as you can see, this dwarf here is flashing. That means that is the dwarf I'm currently looking at. And you can have G, I, P, W, and Z. So G is general. I is inventory, if you happen to want to know what they're carrying. P is preferences. Here you can assign dwarves directly to squads if you have them available. So this, if I wanted to assign him, he would go into the 4th position in this squad, and he would be assigned to the Dwarven, the Fortress Templars. And you can, when you get more, you can scroll through this with the plus or minus, as it says here. Enter will assign them, and will create their squad if you happen to want that. Work animals, if you have any like hunting or war dogs, you can assign them to people specifically, but labor is where you will assign, if you didn't happen to like the dwarf therapist, you can assign them here. You can go in and say, oh, I want you to do stoneworking, that sort of thing. Actually, we need to give this guy some jobs, because he's our chief medical dwarf, so he doesn't do a whole ton of a lot, so we're going to give him some jobs, basically just to keep him busy when we're not chopping up people. All right. So we're going to go ahead and mine out a little bit more. We're going to dump all of these. So to view something to dump is K. You highlight what you're looking for and hit D. So as you can see, I can sort of scroll through with plus or minus in the K viewer. Go to the hamster remains, because that's what that little purple squiggle is. And then we'll hit D to dump. And some, as you can see down in announcements, we have some rock dwarves that were, or rock doors that were just completed. So we're going to go ahead and build those. So hit B for build, D for door. And then it'll be a selector here. I'll basically use the arrow keys to go where you want to set them. Hit enter, and it'll bring up these quartzite doors. I don't think I talked about this in any of the other videos. I'm sorry about that. We did place those beds. But it'll bring up this little menu. If you have multiple of them or different kinds of qualities and you want like a noble dwarf or something to have access to something more valuable, there's a couple of options here. You can either hit enter, and whatever's the next one in the list is what they're going to drag out of storage and basically throw wherever you told them. If you happen to want a valuable one, you can go ahead and hit V to view, or actually X to expand the expand the menu, and then view to view the specific item, and it'll tell you the basic value in these like turtle bucks over here. So as you can see, you can kind of get an idea for the value of items. And the value of items is also displayed in the Dwarf Fortress wiki, which will be linked below. Alright, so we've got some tables, so we're going to build those as well. Hit B to enter the build menu. Of course, you can always scroll through the build menu with the plus or minus on the number pad. You can go ahead and find it that way, or if you can happen to spot it with your eyes, you can target it over here. I just happen to remember. So we built a table here. This is going to be for our manager, so we're also going to want a chair, so it can be his office. Then what we're going to want to do is start filling this up so we can have a meeting place that's away from our from out in the middle of nowhere, basically. So let's jump back downstairs. This is kind of a big room, so I'm going to build supports actually. So I'm going to hit B for build. I'm going to hold Shift S, and that will be support. And then you can just sort of pick them. We're going to use quartzite because we happen to have a lot of that. And sort of arrange them in any sort of way that you want. If you happen to not have turned off cave-ins, you're always going to want to consider the bigger rooms. Basically, think of it in real life. If stuff gets too big and you stack it up too high, you'll have a bigger chance that it's all going to fall in on itself, and that can suck when, 10 of your legendary dwarves happen to be hanging out in the meeting hall and they all fall down a hole that opened up and splat and die. So we're going to go ahead and create this sort of meeting hall here. So we're going to go ahead and hit B and T for table, and then we're going to sort of build it out in a way that kind of makes it more of a meeting hall kind of thing. Sort of like a big place to just go, get hammered with your Dwarven buddies. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. That'll be good. And I'll show you how we basically put that together. Of course, you are always allowed to sort of put your stuff however you want it. My way isn't the law of the land. It might not even be the best way. It just happens to be my way, so that's the way I do it. If you think, oh crap, this looks so ugly, build something better. You don't have to do what I do. I'm basically just showing you how to do it. So we do have some of this built. Here you can see these are the 4 workshops here. They're all labeled up here. So this is the kitchen. I don't recommend turning this on very early in the game just because when you cook something, it basically consumes the food item. So if you've got a plump helmet sort of farm going, it'll definitely use those plump helmets, but the problem is when it consumes a plump helmet, it won't give you a seed back, or it won't give you a plump helmet spawn. So you'll basically be burning away your ability to recreate food. If you use it in a still, however, it will give you those seeds back. So we're going to hit Q. Again, that's view construction. So as you can see, I can see all these stairs and these pillars and all sorts of stuff. But I want to look at the still. So we're going to go over here. As you can see, here are the commands for our stills, and we're going to want to add a new task, and we're going to want to brew drink. I want them to do this forever. So I'm going to go ahead and hit R, and that will basically repeat the current task. So once this is complete, it'll basically drop it back in the menu. So it'll basically be doing that forever until they run out of materials, and it'll definitely tell me that. It'll be like, hey, you ran out of blah, 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 blah. And then we'll all be sad. Okay, so now we're going to do a room expansion. So if you can see here, they've finished hauling the table and the chair into this dwarf's office. So to make it, right now it's just a room with a table and a chair. Not very useful, no dwarves care. So we're going to go ahead and hit Q to view construction. And we're going to, so basically on tables, if you expand it, it turns it into a dining room. On chairs, if you expand it, it turns it into basically like an office. On beds, if you expand it, it turns it into a bedroom. So here we're going to highlight the chair. We're going to hit R. The door limits it, so like if I hit plus here, because plus is to make the room bigger, it will never pass that door, ever. So that's basically what the good use of doors is to keep rooms from having, because as you'll see when I expand it over here, it'll kind of make it funky. It happens. Sometimes it's not a bad thing. If you're OCD like some of us, then sometimes it's definitely something to consider. Free chair means if it's already assigned someone, you kick them out, you say you can't have this. R is basically if you think, I think I want to make that room a little smaller, or a little bigger, something like that, you can definitely do that. A, assign chair. So I happen to know that our expedition leader is complaining at us for wanting a chair. So if we hit N, it says this require here. And if we hit enter, it'll basically tell you his needs. So he just wants a meager office. That's all he cares about, or at least the expedition leader, that's all they care about. If you come down to manager, that's basically the same sort of thing. If you come down to chief medical dwarf, it doesn't have anything. The chief medical dwarf is happy as long as he is assigned. Same thing with broker. Oh, apparently brokers need meager office. I did not know that. Whoops. So yeah, so that is basically that sort of thing there. So let's now use our newfound room creation powers and go ahead and pick a table here. I'm going to pick this table just because I kind of know how this is going to go. Actually, I'm going to pick this table. So remember R, Q to view the table, and R to make the room. So we're going to hit plus a couple of times and it's going to expand it. As you can see, it's kind of spilling out into these areas. Not necessarily the best, but you know, it's a meeting hall, so of course people are gonna like talk in the storeroom or over in the kitchen. So, you know, I'm okay with it. So I'm gonna hit enter, and I'm going to on dining rooms you can make them a meeting halls. We're gonna turn that on. We're gonna say yes, we want that. So now all of these tables and chairs, this all counts as a meeting hall. So instead of hanging out outside where it's raining or an ogre might eat you, that sort of thing, they'll go downstairs. They'll always sort of be torn between those 2 points until we remove this. So as you can see, this dog's still kind of hanging out. It's because this still counts as a meeting hall. I'm going to just check and see what these guys are up to. So I'm going to give them some new jobs just because I want to keep them productive for when caravans arrive. So a good few things to make in terms of just to sell, to have value, so you can sort of buy things you actually want or need. So go ahead and hit J, M, and this will bring you into the job manager. So from here, we're going to want to order a few new things. So there are basically 3 or 4 items, well, 5 or 6 technically, and then of the different material types. But anyways, I would not recommend wood crafts. As you can see, you can type whatever you want here. I can just type in wood, and it'll tell me everything that's made out of wood and has a C in it. As you can see, that's everything that says construct and wood, it'll pull that up. But anyways, I would not make wood, especially if you're doing it for trading, just because elves, if you trade anything made out of wood, including barrels and bins, they will hate your guts, and they will leave. So they will leave. If you do that to them 3 times, they will declare war on you. It sounds kind of like, oh, Lord of the Rings elves, oh my god. No. Lord of the Ring, or Dwarf Fortress military, like their infantry, absolutely the worst. They're basically a bunch of guys clad in, like, bark with sticks, like a wooden sword, literally. I mean, they still inflict damage, but they're not that crap, or they're not that good. Where you really want to be alert of is elven archers. They come in droves, and they will shoot you 2 pincushions. So if you want to avoid this pin-cushioned state, which I recommend, though if you want to try it, feel free. I mean, losing is fun, right? Don't make things out of wood. Even if, like, you're just like, well, I've got lots of wood and not a lot of stone, don't do it. Things order and organize however they want in this game. So when you create, like, 1 wooden craft and 600 stone crafts, there's going to be 1 wooden craft in a barrel or a bin somewhere. Even if those bins are made out of metal and the barrels are made out of metal, there'll be a wooden item in there somewhere, and you'll have to watch for it, and you'll trade it to these elves, and they'll spot it, and they'll be like, are you joking me right now? I'm gonna kill you. So I recommend to stay away from wooden crafts altogether. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in stone crafts. This is basically like earrings, crowns, scepters, all of that sort of thing. I just ordered those up, so we're not going to necessarily do another set. So this is going to be another proving point. If I'm like, oh crap, I want stone craft, or so I selected stone crafts, and I remember, oh crap, I don't want those. Can I have 0? No. You can't have 0. As you can see, it defaulted to the bare minimum, which is 1. It'll be 1 of 1. The most you can have is 30. The least you can have is 1. So I don't want that. So I'm going to scroll through with my arrows, and I'm going to hit R to remove it. So as you can see, we've already got stone crafts here. And we've already got rock instruments, which is another thing. It's basically like flutes, harps. I don't know how you make a harp out of stone, but you do. Like, does that include the strings? I don't know. Another thing is mugs. Rock mugs. You can also make rock... Sometimes the names are kind of similar. So, like, for example, rock mugs. If you happen to have glass, it's not a glass mug, as you can see. It's a glass goblet. So, sometimes you have to be a little bit cleverer with the wording. The next thing is rock toys. So we'll 10 of those, whatever. So those are the 4 main ones. There's also something, if you're doing really well hunting or butchering, there's a couple things you want to make. Totems. This basically uses skulls to create some kind of totem. I don't know what the totem looks like. It'll describe it. You can look at it. it'll take those skulls and turn them into stuff that you can sell. You never use them. Dwarves don't care for it. They're like, yep, it's a thing, cool, whatever. You can do it. It's a material that would otherwise go to waste. I would definitely recommend it. I now have to order it, but I don't really want it, so I'm going to remove it. The next thing is bone. You can make stuff out of any kind of bone. I usually, because I'm usually so starved for ammo, I usually turn all my bone into bolts. But you can also turn them into crafts and armor, and you can do stuff with it. So that's definitely something you can do as well. The other thing is if you have lots of fisher dwarves catching turtles and like oysters and that sort of thing, shells are something else you can use to make crafts. So it's something else to consider. So those are the sort of like things that you'll always have that you can create to sell. But there's other things as well, but those are the like easy right off the bat kind of things. As you can see, we're kind of running a little bit low on wood. So I'm going to go out here, hit D and T for chop trees, and then remember it's just the box. Ooh. Let me think. What else do we need to do? Ah, yes, we need some storage space, don't we? And the cat is leaving all kinds of dead stuff everywhere. Which is what you want the cat to do, but it's still annoying because I have to tell it to get rid of all that crap all the time. I might do this up actually fancy later. If you watch the other ones, I kind of have a thing for the aesthetic, but for now I just want dwarves to sleep there. I'm also going to order up a few things. We're going to order up rock jugs. How about 10 of those? Rock pots. How about 10 of those too? Barrels. 10 sounds like a consistent number. And bins. We'll go with wooden bins. So basically, pots store any sort of like solid item, like food, sometimes arrows, that sort of thing. Jugs contain liquid items, so things like booze, honey, that sort of thing. Barrels basically operate as jugs. The problem was, before, it used to be that only barrels existed, so you would consume so much wood because you always needed more barrels and that sort of thing, and beds, and so, like, your wood intake is always going to be very high, let me tell you that right now, so be prepared to import wood. Bins basically contain everything, so you don't necessarily, like, pour juice in there, but you'll throw a barrel or a pot in there, usually when they're empty, and then you can sell them that way. So bins are gigantic. Think of them as, like, giant crates. I'm gonna order up some... Oh, so another thing on seating, like on other names for things. So for chairs, you can definitely do wooden chair, but it doesn't come up as rock chair. Whoops. See. So what you actually have to do is go rock throne. However, that sounds very fancy, so I usually just do them in wood. Because, you know, not everyone gets a throne. Sorry, guys. So what I'm doing here is I'm about to mine out and get a storage place. Since our trade depot is right here, we want sort of all of our stockpiles and storage to be close, just so not only is our crafting here, but so are all storage, so when something's created, it'll basically be around the corner, and when someone arrives to buy stuff, delivering it will also be just around the corner. So, since we are industrious dwarves, we are going to make this pretty big. Yeah, that's fine. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's something else we need to start thinking about, and that's death. But right now I'm just going to order up the coffins. I'm not going to start the crypts at all. I'm just going to order them up. So you can always get those started whenever you want. It's probably going to be a little while before I have a dwarf die on me, but it never hurts to be safe. One thing to keep your dwarves busy, so if you never really trust this sort of thing, because as soon as you don't have a material, this will get cancelled out. But one way to keep it from getting cancelled out is to open your job manager, again, JM. Go ahead and hit Q, and things like brew drink will always come up. And we'll order 30 of those just because we want as many as possible. But that means without the stuff, it's going to spam us for a while. Actually, you know what? I don't want that. And anything that you can find in any of the workshops, you can also find in the job manager. So any of these here, we can find in the job manager. Oh, there we go. See, we just got an announcement, and this is why you sort of put things away. You get stockpiles, you try and get things out of the wagon as soon as possible. Things will steal your crap. This is, Akia is like a weird little bird creature, and it just stole a ton of cloth and rope, which are kind of valuable, honestly, which makes that a little bit tragic, but there's not a whole lot we can do about it. I'm going to expand my farm here. So that is kind of why we're working on a stockpile, just so we can put things away and things can stop stealing. Because as you can see, it's still stealing from us. So that's pretty bad. Fortunately, it's replaceable. It's just that in this early stage, they're kind of valuable. So, anyways, that looks like it is about the end of our episode. So I will say, I've been Draxxinusam. You've been fantastic, and we hope to see you here in Dwarf Fortress Lazy Noob Pack next time. You have a good one, gamers.